Hello and welcome to Watch Max's Watch Videos. My name is Axel and I'm glad to have you on the show for another watch of the Steinhart brand. Thanks to Thorsten. Thorsten, thank you very much. I am again able in the vein of the Star Club to present another Steinhart, although Steinhart does not provide any of their watches to YouTubers. So I'm totally glad to present the Steinhart Ocean Vintage Red 39 Gnomon Exclusive Edition watch. What a name. Steinhart, if you look my watches, please consider to choose shorter names. It makes it so much easier to talk about your watches. Steinhart Ocean Vintage Red 39 Gnomon Exclusive. That's the watch we're talking about today. There is no doubt that there is a historical role model for this watch. However, I feel Steinhart has enough own design to distinguish from the historical watch. It is an homage, no doubt about it, but it is not a fake and it is definitely not a one-to-one copy. This watch is not available in Germany or Europe, at least not directly from Steinhart. It's an edition which has been produced and released exclusively for Gnomon watches in Singapore. And if you would like to buy the watch, you have to approach Gnomon watches at a price of $519 US. And if you like to go for the Jubilee bracelet, which is shown here on the watch, you have to add another $70 to the price. I personally like these kind of watches which are, if not limited, but they are kind of exclusive in the country where I live. So even if I'm not a totally big fan of the old radium lume, I like the idea of a watch which is not being sold at any corner and at any shop. So that's something I do like. With a diameter of 39mm, it's a watch which perfectly suits to smaller wrists, but I'm going to show you this in detail during the video. Now let's move to the tech specs and detailed figures. As I mentioned, diameter is 39mm. On the front we have an AR coated sapphire crystal on the inner side. We have an aluminium bezel. We have a lug width of 20mm. And we have a thickness of the watch of 14mm. The lug to lug span is 47mm and the side is polished while the top view of the watch is brushed. The bezel turns with 120 clicks. When it turns, it is really fixed and hard, which is good for a diver's watch. Let's see what the watch weighs with the Jubilee bracelet shortened to a wrist size of 17cm. Well, it's exactly 141 gram, so that's the weight of the watch. I put off my Laco Frankfurt GMT and let's see how the Steinhart Ocean Vintage Red 39 Gnomon Exclusive Edition sits on my 17cm wrist. Thorsten has about the same wrist size I have, so it's really great, and you can see the watch really suits my wrist, sits well. 42mm would be too big for me, and with the small size of 39 I can really live with the flat shape of the case, which I usually don't like too much. Thorsten gave me another strap to show you how a sand gray canvas strap could look like on the watch. This is a watch from the manufacturer in Germany, a canvas strap with a leather inner side, so it's not meant to be worn in a pool or when you go swimming or doing sports. But I think it really suits the vintage loomer and really perfectly fits to the watch. Although if canvas, I personally would prefer a canvas which you can use for sports or going swimming, like the Miros canvas I presented in one of my latest videos. Yeah, the watch is clearly a watch from the Ocean series. The case shape with the flat horns really emphasizes this. However, the 39mm series of Steinharts is the, I would say, unisex version of the bigger 42mm Ocean series. This crown is a guarded screw-down crown with a really clean and neatly done mechanism. You can easily operate the crown even with gloves on, no issue at all with that. Really easy to operate. You can see there is quite a lot of text on the dial. On the top you have the logo and the name of Steinhart, and in the lower half you have 5 lines of text, luckily 2 of which are red, so they tend to disappear. The bracelet is the Jubilee bracelet, which I really like. I'm a fan of this bracelet. The design may be discussed, but the short links really make it easy to adjust the strap to your wrist size, and it is really smooth and comfortable to wear strap, since it really easily bends around the wrist. Absolutely comfortable. As I said, design can be disputed, but the comfort on the wrist is great. The end links are massive and have a nearly perfect fit to the lugs, so there is no play, no movement. Absolutely nicely done. The case back of the watch is a screw down stainless steel case back, which results in a water resistance of 300 meter, equaling 30 bar. The watch is empowered by an SW200 Swiss automatic movement. Hands and indices, as well as the marker on the 12 o'clock position on the bezel, are filled with Super Luminova Old Radium. You may like it or you may hate it. I'm not a big fan of vintage watches at all, so I'm also not totally keen of the vintage loom. But if you want to have a watch with a vintage character but an up-to-date technical equipment and status, this could be an option to go for. The overall build quality is really good. I did not find any spots which I would think are inappropriate for this price class, or maybe one higher. You can see there are certain signs of use on the polished side, and this is simply because Torsten did have this watch in use, so there are certain signs, which is pretty fine. The grip of the bezel is not the best in class. It is a soft bezel, and with gloves on, it's not so easy to operate. But this is something which I am happy to accept. A watch which is significantly more expensive, I would complain about that, to be honest. The clasp is not made from steel sheet, but a really solid clasp with a brushed surface, polished beveled edges, and a two-fold mechanism, a fold over and a security clasp. Really massively done, and even the inner mechanism is massively done, so nothing cheap or not reliable. There are 4 holes for a fine adjustment in combination with the short links of the Jubilee bracelet, perfectly to adjust to your wrist size. There is no diver's extension. I would assume most of us don't do diving. I personally like the diver's extension when I go out with my mountain bike and want to have it just above my clothes. With that watch, that's not possible, so this is important to know. The bracelet doesn't have a diver's extension. If you need one, you probably need another bracelet, an aftermarket bracelet, or would go for a completely different strap choice. All in all, I have to say, for a price tag of $519, this watch is a really bargain for the price. And if we look at the watch at night, you can see that not the complete bezel, but just the 12 o'clock dot is covered with superluminova old radium. And you may have noticed the 12 o'clock position on the bezel has not been correctly in place. So let me adjust it and place it to the 12 o'clock position, and done. The watch is really generously covered with superluminova, easy to read, and I expect it to be very long lasting. And a week ago I showed you the 39 GMT 500 premium ceramic. Both watches are 39 millimeter in diameter, but with the fully lume bezel, the GMT appears to be much bigger. Yeah, both night shots are great. The vintage red from Gnomon exclusive is completely different with the vintage lume, which is good to read at night. It's bright enough, it's long lasting, so no complaint from my side. Really nicely made. What I would really like to know is what you think about the watch. I would kindly ask you to avoid the Steinhart bashing, which sometimes comes up. Steinhart is a brand which really splits the crowd into supporters and haters. I have to say there are many other brands which have a similar design compared to the original masterpiece. Steinhart is not the only one, but Steinhart has enough design elements to distinguish their watches from the original, and the build quality is, for the price tag, absolutely fine. So I would like to know what you think about the watch. Probably not necessarily a Steinhart bashing, and leave your comments what you like, what you don't like, if you prefer this one or the black blue GMT I presented a week ago. Stay safe, keep watching my videos, and till the next one, cheers, Axel.